I love you.
In a world that romanticizes romance, where movies, songs, and social media all celebrate the spark between two people, there are those who quietly opt out. They're not necessarily lonely, they're not bitter or heartbroken, they're just uninterested. The idea of going out on a date, sitting across from someone, making small talk, navigating expectations, doesn't appeal to them. For some, it even triggers discomfort. For others, it simply feels unnecessary. And yet, these people exist in a culture that often treats dating as the gateway to happiness, companionship, and even adulthood. So, who are the people who don't like going out on dates? What goes on beneath the surface, in their minds, their emotions, and their inner worlds? Let's step into their psychology. Society often assumes that everyone wants to date or that everyone should. Movies depict love as the ultimate goal. Friends ask, "Are you seeing anyone?" as if the question is as casual as "How's work?" This constant cultural message creates a subtle pressure that dating is the natural expression of emotional health, confidence, and maturity. But the truth is, human desire isn't one size fits all. Our motivations for connection are complex, and so are our aversions to it. When someone says, "I just don't like going out on dates," they're not necessarily rejecting intimacy. They might just be rejecting the social format of dating itself. For some, dating feels performative. It's a stage where they have to play a role, charming, interesting, attractive. The focus shifts from authentic connection to self-presentation, and for people who value emotional safety and depth, this can feel like acting rather than relating. Psychologists often point to personality differences as one of the main reasons people experience dating differently. The Big Five personality model, openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism, helps explain this. Introverts, for instance, may find the idea of a typical date draining. Small talk in a loud restaurant, the overstimulation can feel exhausting before the night even begins. They might crave connection, but they prefer it in quieter, more organic ways, like deep conversation over coffee with a close friend or simply spending time with someone familiar. Those high in neuroticism who tend to experience anxiety and self-consciousness might associate dating with worry, fear of judgment, rejection, or saying the wrong thing. People low in agreeableness may resist dating because it requires emotional negotiation, empathy, compromise, and social attunement, all of which might feel unnatural or frustrating. And individuals with high openness may reject conventional dating because it feels formulaic. They might seek unconventional ways to connect through shared interests, art, or ideas, rather than structured meetups. When viewed through the lens of personality, avoiding dates isn't strange. It's consistent. It's an expression of psychological alignment, people honoring what feels natural to them. For many people, dating is an audition. We dress a certain way, filter our thoughts, tell our best stories, and try to read the other person's signals. There's often a background hum of evaluation. Do they like me? Am I saying the right thing? Psychologists call this social evaluation anxiety, the fear of being judged in social or romantic settings. This anxiety doesn't always come from insecurity. Sometimes it stems from self-awareness. People who think deeply about their identity or values might feel uncomfortable with how superficial dating can feel at first. They crave authenticity, but the dating process often rewards performance. The irony is that the more someone wants a genuine connection, the less they might enjoy the dating rituals that supposedly create it. It's like trying to find silence in a room full of people talking. Another powerful psychological layer behind the dislike of dating is comfort in solitude. Contrary to stereotypes, solitude isn't loneliness. It's the ability to be content, centered, and fulfilled in one's own company. Many people who avoid dating aren't avoiding love, they're preserving peace. They know that relationships can be emotionally complex, draining, or unpredictable. They've learned to find stability within themselves rather than through another person. Psychologist Donald Winnicott once wrote about the capacity to be alone as a sign of emotional maturity. It means being grounded enough in your own identity that you don't need constant reassurance from others. People who don't like dating often have that capacity. They're not anti-connection, they're simply not dependent on it. This inner stability can be intimidating to others, especially in a culture that equates being single with being incomplete. But from a psychological standpoint, it's a quiet form of strength. Of course, not everyone who dislikes dating does so because of personality or preference. Sometimes the aversion runs deeper, tied to past experiences and emotional learning. For example, someone who grew up in a home with conflict or neglect might associate intimacy with tension, unpredictability, or pain. A person who's experienced rejection or betrayal might unconsciously link dating with vulnerability and loss. Someone who's been shamed for their appearance, interests, or emotions may internalize the belief that they're not good at dating, so they stop trying. The brain learns through association. If early relationships taught someone that connection equals danger or humiliation, the body will remember that lesson, so when they think about going on a date, their nervous system doesn't feel excitement, it feels threat. And avoidance in this case becomes a form of self-protection. Dating today isn't just about two people meeting. It's about navigating a digital marketplace of potential partners. Apps and algorithms have gamified love. Swiping, matching, ghosting. These behaviors shape how people experience intimacy. For many, this process feels dehumanizing. The randomness, the constant comparison, the performative nature of profiles, it turns dating into something mechanical. People who are introspective or sensitive to emotional energy often find this environment overwhelming. They may see it as artificial, even spiritually draining. In psychological terms, this can create cognitive dissonance, a clash between one's values, wanting authentic connection, and the methods available, using apps that reduce humans to choices. The result, emotional fatigue. Many people withdraw not because they don't want love, but because they can't stand how love is marketed now. Attachment theory, originally developed by John Bowlby and later expanded by Mary Ainsworth, helps explain different patterns of intimacy. People with avoidant attachment styles often value independence over closeness. They may see emotional intimacy as a potential threat to autonomy. Avoidant individuals tend to downplay their need for connection and suppress emotions that might lead to dependence on others. For them, dating can trigger internal alarms. Will I lose myself? Will I have to compromise too much? Will someone expect more than I can give? This isn't about arrogance or emotional coldness, it's about self-preservation. Avoidant individuals often learned early in life that closeness led to pain, inconsistency, or disappointment. As adults, they protect themselves by keeping emotional distance, and avoiding dating can be one way of maintaining that distance. Yet beneath that independence, there's often a quiet longing. not for romance itself, but for safe connection. For analytical minds, dating can feel like a maze of ambiguity. What does this text mean? Should I say I had a good time, or will that seem too eager? Are they being distant or just busy? People who think deeply or who have perfectionist tendencies may find dating emotionally taxing because it's filled with uncertainty. Psychologically, this ties to intolerance of ambiguity, a trait describing how comfortable someone is with the unknown. Dating, especially in its early stages, is pure uncertainty. You don't know what the other person truly thinks, whether feelings are mutual or whether the relationship will last. For some, that's thrilling. For others, it's chaos. So they opt out. To them, avoiding dating isn't avoidance, it's clarity. It's choosing predictability over emotional turbulence. We live in an age of visibility. People document everything, from meals to milestones. Even love has become a kind of performance art. And for people who value privacy, introspection, or authenticity, this cultural shift can be alienating. They don't want to post couple photos or announce soft launches. They don't want to define themselves through relationships. This isn't cynicism, it's boundary setting. In psychology, authenticity is linked to well-being. People who prioritize internal values over external validation often live more congruently with their sense of self. For these individuals, refusing to engage in performative dating is an act of integrity. They're not rejecting people, they're rejecting pressure. In recent years, there's been a cultural shift towards self-development, healing, and self-awareness. People read about attachment styles, emotional boundaries, and trauma recovery. With that awareness comes introspection and sometimes hesitation. Some people choose not to date because they're in a phase of personal growth. They don't want to project unhealed patterns onto others or get caught in cycles they're trying to break. This mindset aligns with what psychologists call self-determination theory, which emphasizes autonomy, competence, and relatedness as core human needs. In this framework, saying no to dating isn't a rejection of connection, it's a pursuit of autonomy and self-mastery. Despite all these valid reasons, people who dislike dating often face misunderstanding. They're called picky, cold, or afraid of commitment. Friends might assume something's wrong, that they're secretly heartbroken or not ready. But this stigma overlooks the psychological diversity of human desire. Not everyone seeks fulfillment through romantic connection. Some find it through creativity, friendship, spirituality, or solitude. Maslow's hierarchy of needs includes love and belonging, yes, but it also includes self-actualization. Some people reach that level not through partnership, but through purpose. For others, the aversion to dating is less about avoidance and more about fatigue. They've dated before, maybe many times, and the patterns repeat: excitement, disillusionment, emotional drain. This cycle can create learned helplessness, a psychological state where people feel that their actions no longer produce desired results. Why go out again if the ending always feels the same? Over time, the brain learns that effort equals disappointment. It starts to generalize, dating never works out for me. Avoidance becomes not just a preference, but a coping mechanism to prevent disappointment from becoming despair. On a deeper level, some people resist dating because of existential values. They see romantic love as one expression of human experience, not the ultimate one. Philosophers like Erich Fromm and Viktor Frankl wrote that love, while profound, is not the only path to meaning. Purpose, creativity, and transcendence can offer fulfillment too. For some individuals, their energy is directed inward or towards something larger than interpersonal romance, like art, spirituality, or service. They're not running from connection, they're reaching for something different. In existential psychology, this is not pathology, it's individuality. Sometimes the body says no before the mind can explain why. Psychologists and trauma researchers like Bessel van der Kolk emphasize that the body keeps the score. It remembers discomfort even if we can't verbalize it. For some people, the thought of dating triggers subtle physical resistance, tension, fatigue, anxiety. These sensations may not come from conscious beliefs, but from deeper emotional memory. Perhaps a past relationship left a scar. Perhaps repeated disappointments created a physiological association between dating and distress. In this sense, the aversion isn't just mental, it's embodied. And until the nervous system feels safe again, the idea of dating may continue to feel like a threat. One of the biggest misconceptions about people who dislike dating is that they're lonely. But loneliness and solitude are not the same thing. Loneliness is the pain of being disconnected from others. Solitude is the peace of being connected with oneself. Psychologically, solitude can be restorative. It allows for reflection, creativity, and self-regulation. People who thrive in solitude often have strong internal attachment systems. They can self-soothe, self-reflect, and self-validate. They might not crave external relationships because their internal world already feels full. In contrast, people who can't stand being alone may rush into relationships for emotional regulation, to fill silence with noise or stillness with stimulation. Those who dislike dating are often simply comfortable with silence. Modern life is overstimulating, constant notifications, social comparison, emotional labor. For some people, adding dating into that mix feels unbearable. It's one more domain of uncertainty, one more space demanding emotional energy. Psychologically, this relates to sensory and emotional overstimulation, common among introverts and highly sensitive people, HSPS. They process stimuli deeply, meaning that a single date can feel as draining as an entire day of work. Avoiding dating, then, isn't antisocial, it's self-care. It's a way of managing sensory and emotional input in a world that rarely slows down. At the heart of it, disliking dating is about choice. It's about reclaiming the freedom to define connection on your own terms, without cultural scripts, social pressure, or the fear of missing out. From a psychological standpoint, this is called internal locus of control, the belief that your life is guided by your own decisions rather than external forces. People with a strong internal locus of control often resist trends or expectations that don't align with their inner compass. So when they say, "I just don't like going out on dates," they're asserting autonomy. They're not rejecting love, they're rejecting conformity. Those who dislike dating often channel their emotional energy elsewhere, towards self-discovery, creativity, learning, or deep friendships. They tend to prefer organic connection, the kind that grows slowly through shared experiences or mutual curiosity. They might fall in love, but it happens quietly, not through a date, but through time. Their relationships often have depth because they weren't forced or planned. They emerge naturally without the pressure of expectation. In a culture obsessed with finding the one, not wanting to date is almost revolutionary. It's a quiet rebellion against the idea that worth is tied to romantic success. Psychologically, this rebellion represents self-actualization. the stage of development where people live according to their authentic values rather than external demands. It's not cynicism, it's evolution. These individuals aren't rejecting humanity, they're redefining it. Maybe the people who don't like going out on dates aren't strange or broken. Maybe they're simply tuned into a different frequency, one that values depth over display, peace over pressure, and authenticity over ritual. In a world that celebrates noise, they choose quiet. In a culture that worships connection, they choose introspection. And in a society that equates love with activity, they find meaning in stillness. Their psychology isn't about avoidance, it's about awareness. They've learned that connection doesn't always come from candlelit dinners or long conversations with strangers. Sometimes it comes from the quiet understanding of self, the inner relationship that forms the foundation for every other. So, if you're someone who doesn't like going out on dates, perhaps there's nothing wrong with you at all. Maybe you've simply discovered something the world forgets. That love, true love, begins not with another person, but with peace in your own company.